Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright, hi friends, and welcome to another weekly wrap-up, and I am so sorry this one's going up a little late, but as I said, I still wanted to get it up on Sunday. There was just no way I was going to be able to film it on Saturday, and that ended up being good because I finished 2 more books last night when I got home. So this weekend, Friday and Saturday, I was at a a conference here in town, but I stayed at my friend's house, which was right next to the place, because Saturday morning it started at 7 a.m. So I stayed at her house to be closer so that I didn't have to drive, because we also had a snowstorm come in on Friday night, so it was a whole thing. So anyway, I was like, you know what, I still want to do a weekly wrap up because I have a good amount of books to talk about. I didn't want to wait a whole week to do another one, even though like double ones are fun too. I know you guys like that, but today, although like you'd never know, we have the storm out here. The sun is out, so beautiful, so bright. I had to sit in the couch position today because the sun is so bright in my recording corner that it is just, it would be a lot. I also made some of my melon ball, is that what it's called? My melon ball tea that I love. Because I was around a lot of people this weekend, and you know, sometimes that can mean you're going to get a cold, so I'm prepared. But we'll dive in. I have a few things to share about first before we get in. This was a very romantic-y heavy week for me, which is great. It is Faro Feb. If you missed the interview I did with Juliet Cross and Bella Roth, I will have a link to my Instagram down below. It was an Instagram interview this time, but even if you don't have Instagram, I'm pretty sure you can still go and watch that. I don't know how it works. Maybe you can't. I don't know. But I'll have a link to it either way. That was so much fun to get to talk to her about some books she has coming. As well as Bella. I've never talked with Bella before. I haven't read any of her books yet, but it was still a really good talk to have. Also, I believe, I can't remember when we shared, I think this was over a week ago, but I'm going to be a co-host for Realmathon the whole month of March. And this is my first time. I have definitely heard of Realmathon, but I've never, oh boy, we're going to be doing that today. But I never participated before. I just hadn't. There's always been enough other readathons I'd done. But actually back in I think November, Cass asked me if I would be one of her hosts for it. And I was like, I love it. I want to get to know some more booktubers. This one isn't just focused on romance. It is for reading as a whole. A lot of the prompts will cover just everything. You can read anything and be able to participate. But there are 4 different families you can be a part of, and the city that the whole Realmathon is taking place in is actually called Carrion City. And she has a whole thing set up for it. And the reason I'm mentioning this in a weekly wrap-up is that she sent us hosts a set of the bookmarks for it, which is so kind. These are actually on sale right now on her Etsy, and you can get a whole set, I think, for $32. And individually, I think they're maybe like 8 or 9. And you'll see they're so worth it. So here's a full set of these. So this is the Stingers, which has little jellyfish. There is the Ravens. There is the Monarchs, which is actually my team. I'm co-hosting. And shoot, I can't remember what this team is, but the Stag is their design. So these are so cool, and the way that they work too is that they all kind of bleed into each other, like blue to pink there into the green, and the Monarch one is there. They're so beautiful. I just got these in the mail and I wanted to show them off, and I will have a link to her down below if you want to check these out. There is also merch for t-shirts and stuff. I hopefully will be able to buy a sweater. I don't know. I need to cool it on some of the merch drops I've got, but I just got this little mail and it's so pretty. I can't wait to use these. They're just stunning. And I wasn't expecting her to send me a whole set. I thought I was just getting my Monarch one, which I would have been totally happy with this, but she sent me a whole set. So those are beautiful. And there's so many new booktubers for me to check out from this. I can't wait. And then the other thing I just wanted to share, I normally put this all in its own video, but I got this gift from Caitlin. She just sent this to me and I just wanted to show it because it's so pretty. So this is the Speakeasy Duet. I had this on my wish list, which I always have linked in the description, and I didn't even know that she had ordered this for me. Caitlin did. And the Speakeasy Duet was actually some an out of print duet from Melanie Harlow. And with, you know, she's gotten a lot more attention lately since some of her books are getting republished traditionally. They repackaged these into a duet, and now I can read these. I've never read them before. I do believe this is more like new adult. Oh, and it's actually historical too. So it takes place in the 1920s during Prohibition, and I believe it's a little bit like mafia-esque. But Joey Lupo is the hero. This is a love triangle. He's one of the heroes in here. And if you know, Joe Lupo, his great grandson, I believe, is the hero in Slapshot Surprise. So the Lupos actually show up in many of her other series. There's a Lupo also in the second gen series of Cloverleaf Farms, and they also show up in the French series. So anyway, I just wanted to say a big thank you to Caitlin for sending me this. This was such a nice surprise to get. So yeah, those are just, normally I put that stuff in a full book haul, but since I just filmed a haul, I just wanted to show those because they made me so happy. Of course, I have plenty other things that came as like haul items, but they will be saved for another haul in the future there. So there we go with that. Okay, now I just have a few new supporters to shout out. So for channel memberships, I have Joe and Dio. Sorry if I mess that up, but they are a new supporter at the Faded Friend level. So thank you so much. Welcome. And then for Patreon, we have two new supporters there. We have a Monica J and we have a Dana C. And they both joined my Patreon to support me there. So thank you both so much. You are the best. So happy to have new supporters here. So enough of the pre-talk. Let's get into it because as I had said, this was a very fantasy heavy week and we have a lot of books to talk about for sure. So let's get into it. And the first book that I finished this week was actually a little bit of a carryover from January because I did start it then, but I had also put it on my February TBR because I really wanted to get to this book. So it was on my February TBR, which, you know, I film my TBRs early. So I actually started this one a little bit early, and that was When the Moon Hatched. So finally got around to this one. This copy that I have was actually gifted to me for my birthday last year, which, you know, my birthday's in March, so I've had it almost a year. I know this was one of Crystal's favorite books last year, and when the audiobook came out midway through last year, I grabbed it and I just didn't get to it. So yeah, this one was intense. This is a big chunker. I mean, most of the fantasies are that I read this week. That's usually how it goes. And this is the first in the Moonfall series, and it is amazing. I will not do this justice trying to explain this. I think there's some YouTubers out there who can explain it better than me. But the main characters, as it were, is this character named Rave is our heroine in here. And in the beginning, we can tell she's kind of like this rebel, like, how do we explain her? Okay, here. I'm looking at the back here. She is an Elding Blade of a rebellion group called the Fjord du Ath, and her job is to kill. So she'll complete different orders and not get caught. And then there is a renowned bounty hunter who's employed by the Crown who is set to capture her. And so she gets captured and put into kind of this like prison type place. And she is going to be used as a political statement. And then we have Khan, who is, I mean, we'll just call him like a dragon rider, but he's like bonded with a dragon. And he is a, how do we describe him? I think he's a royal is how we would say it. But he is hunting for these different moon shards. And he gets drawn into this prison where he stumbles upon Rave. And now he feels very drawn to Rave. And there's something about her that just absolutely wrecks him. And so he actually ends up, I believe he like rescues her from it, is how it went, and goes about like bringing her to safety, and he brings her back to his kingdom. And that is only like the beginning of it. Okay. So also throughout this book, we're getting these diary entries of this woman. It starts out when she's a girl, but we get these diary entries of this girl named, let me find one. Of course, I can't find one when I want to tell you guys about it. Of Elwyn Navan. And we get these diary entries from her from the age of like 9 years old. And so we know that this person is connected to this whole story in some way. But yeah, there's also dragons involved, and there is reincarnation involved, and yeah, dragons. And in this world too, like when a dragon dies, if they have time, they can actually go up into the sky and curl up in a ball and die, and then they become a moon, something to do with that. But if they don't make it in time, then they die, and like it's not good if that happens. I don't know, I'm totally butchering this, I know, y'all. Explaining fantasy stories is not my strongest suit at all, and this world is very complicated. So with all that being said, for all that rambling, I had a wonderful time listening to this. This is very, I don't want to fully say that it's poetic, because I think some people use that as like almost something to hold against a fantasy when they are too much like that. But I think also because I was warned about that, like Crystal is very honest in her review of this, of like she adored it so much a lot because of that very romantic way that it was explained. And I really like that about it too. I really did. But there was also just a very, like, this was a very slow build to it. And because I knew certain things, like, again, I had listened to some semi-spoiler reviews of this, which I don't mind hearing. And in my opinion, I was actually glad knowing where this was building to, because it helped things make a bit more sense. Whereas I think if you didn't know where it was going, you A, probably would figure it out pretty easily, and then B, be like, are you ever going to get around to telling us what is going on? And I was talking to Jessin about it, and she actually explained too that for her, she didn't know any of the things that I did, and she was able to guess pretty early on what was going on. And so then she was just waiting for the story to like catch up to her, and she's like, that can feel very like frustrating at times. But for me, it didn't feel that way, because I always knew one aspect. Like, I wasn't spoiled for the whole thing, but because I always knew one aspect, I was just waiting to see how that unfolded instead of trying to guess what was going to happen. I was just kind of watching it. So for me, that was fine. And I really loved the characters. I really loved Rave, and I really loved Kane. And there are some other POVs that will pop in. Again, you also get the diary entries of Elwyn. And this really had quite a crescendo build to it, to, again, A, some of the releases, but B, to like the cliffhanger ending in this one was like, whoa. And I believe we're not getting the second one until later this year, which that one will of course be directly a traditionally published work. Whereas this one was indie published. I still have the indie copy of the book because that's what Jessin had gifted me. I actually love how compact this one is. When it went traditionally published, it got super fat. Like they printed it really weird. But I will be getting one of the hardcover versions of this. Like, it's really beautiful. So I enjoyed it. I ended up, I think, at a 4.5 star for this one. Or no, I put it at a 4. Is that what I put in here? Let me see. Yes, I gave this one a 4. That's right. Mostly because of what I said is like, this was very long. This took me 10 days to get through the audiobook of it. again, it helped that I knew where it was building to, but I still think it took almost too long to get to that. And some authors are just going to want to tell their stories that way. And I respect it in one aspect because Sarah A. Parker, she has had some traditionally published books as well, I believe. I believe they were like more new adult, the ones she did before. If I'm not completely making that up, right? Yeah, like To Bleed a Crystal Bloom. She had those ones. And I think that this was maybe more of a passion project for her in a way. And so she was able to take her time with all of that. And I respect it. So anyway, I ended up at a 4 with this one. It is like a 2 on the spice scale. There are some steamy scenes that you'll get, but I have a feeling we'll get more of that in like future stories just because of, you know, there was a lot of reveals that had to happen in this one, and romance wasn't the very main thing. Though the romance between a certain couple is the driving heart of this story. Like, it's very hard to explain. Like, romance is a driving part of the story, but it's not completely the main focus of this book. Whereas I feel like the series as a whole, it's a very specific romance that is driving the actions of particularly one of the characters. So yeah, that's hard to explain. Like, there's not a ton of focus on romance in this one because there's a lot of mysteries to us and reveals that have to happen. So I definitely understand why Crystal found the pining and the longing to be so, like, so great. And yeah, I still really liked this. I gave it a 4. I was entertained, but it took a long time to get through. And for the most part, it was pretty easy to put it down when I did put it down. And that wasn't the case for some of the other books we're going to talk about this week, where I just couldn't put them down until I was done. And I think that says a lot about them as well. We had my first 6-star read of the year. And to no one's surprise at all, it is a Julia Wolf. So yes, I read By the Letter literally the day that it was dropped on my Kindle. This one doesn't come out till the 20th. So I'll try to play it a little bit cool with this one because I know a lot of you will read this as soon as it comes out. You guys love Julia Wolf as much as I do. And because it's a 6-star read, I'm going to be talking about it for the entire year anyway. So I don't have to go overboard this first time. Now watch me still talk about it for a while because you know I could do that. But and I'm going to give a little bit of a defense as well, because when you start reading this book, I think some of you will be very turned off by the hero and wonder why Jenn gave this a 6-star read, okay? Much more so than other heroes of hers, okay? Because, you know, well, let's say Elliot may be kind of like off-putting in some bits in the beginning. We also still kind of adore him right away because we know that he's just more quiet and more reserved. And so while Catherine is maybe misunderstanding some of the things he's doing, they can be chalked up to misunderstanding. Her misunderstanding him. And him putting his foot in his mouth a couple of times. But for the most part, that is a straight across. The man absolutely sweeps the woman just completely off her feet, right? Whereas in By the Letter, though there is misunderstanding that causes Roman to treat Shira the way that he does, he also doesn't try to understand her. And it's hard to watch. Like, I cried in frustration a couple times in the beginning, and I really was like, if I had read this book without the vast love of Julia Wolf and without knowing that she would pull, like, I had no doubt she would pull this off. It was just so hard to sit through the parts where she was putting us through what she puts us through. And I already can see in a couple of the reviews from reviewers that it was too much for them, and that is totally fine. But what I want to do in this little review is kind of pitch to you where when you start this, remember Jenn said it's worth it. And I want to kind of like pitch it a little bit so that when you're reading it, if you're ready to throw the book at the wall, which you will, you can remember this and come back to my review to get through it. Okay. So enough of that intro for it. So let's go through the setup first and then I'll tell you why. So in this one, we have Shira, who of course is one of, Clara's friends, because Clara, Shira, and Bee, those are the three heroines in this, and they're all like female billionaires is kind of where this one goes. And Shira is a widow. She's been a widow for about a year. She had a much older husband who she loved, but they weren't in love with each other. And at the very beginning of this book, she is going to meet a man that she met on an app to have a mask-wearing one-night stand. She has talked to him on this app and said what she wants, and they both agree to meet at this one sex club, and they're both wearing masks, and the kink that she wants is she doesn't want to have to tell him what she wants. There, of course, is a safe word for if she doesn't want it, but otherwise it's going to be kind of like a free use night where he can do whatever he wants to her, and they'll say goodbye at the end of the night and never see each other again. And that's both really what they want. And Shira, she has been denying herself for a very long time because, I don't know, it's pretty obvious to us, the readers, so this isn't a spoiler. Like, the man who was her husband who died, this very wealthy older man, like, they weren't sleeping together. I'm just going to put it out there. They were never together, really, right? And so she has been, you know, basically like, what's it called? Not chaste is the wrong word I want to use, but what's the word? Celibate. She's basically been celibate all the time. So they have this amazing one night. The very last time that they are having sex, the condom breaks, and the man that she's with says the condom broke, and she's not on any birth control because of who she was married to. And he's like, I'm going to leave my name and information with the front desk. If the worst happens, go ahead and reach out to me, because he's like, I would never like abandon you or a baby or anything. And she's like, nothing's going to happen. So, I mean, I've also said, like, this is obviously an accidental pregnancy trope, so we're going to figure it out. Now, Shira goes back to her life, and the way things are going in her business life is not good. Her husband's business that she's been running for the last year is not doing well. She has a stepdaughter who's basically the same age as her, who's an absolute bitch, and thinks that Shira, like, hoodwinked her dad and, like, all of these things. She's just really not good to her. And the business is failing. And so Roman, who, if you read in the details, you'll know that Roman actually is the one who buys part of Jake's family like company. He's invested in it to try to get it off the ground again. And that's something that Roman and his twin brother do. So he has a twin brother named Ben. And they do this. They rescue, you know, I mean, it's not completely altruistic. They're very wealthy. They buy businesses. They rehab them. And so the stepdaughter had actually went to like Roman because there's a connection through their families, and he has bought into the business to try to help it. And in the beginning of it, he just has enough to get himself on the board, and he's there to evaluate the company, see what they can save, and then, you know, see if he can help it. And he feels this debt to the man who had died, who had really helped him in a tough time. And he doesn't want to see this business, which appears to be being run into the ground by Shira. He doesn't want to see this. And he sees her as a gold digger. And he sees her as very aloof and cold and not caring about what's happening with the business. And he just has a very bad opinion of her. At the same time, he has this stepdaughter whispering in his ear about what a bitch she is and how she's stolen things from the man who died and just all of these things. And when Roman has interactions with her, she doesn't really defend herself or appear like she cares at all. And so he has a very low opinion of her, and he really wants to force her out of the company so he can save it. So let's lay all that out there, right? Obviously, you knowing this is a romance know that Roman and Shira, yes, they are that couple that fucked without knowing who they are. And yes, very soon Shira is going to realize she's pregnant, And yes, she will reach out to find who this man is. She wants a baby. So for her, it isn't even a question. But what's going to happen when Roman, who is being horrible to her, finds out that she's going to have his baby, and that this woman who he sees as cold and calculating and a gold digger is the woman that he's felt such a strong connection to, and they had that one night together. So that is the conundrum that Julia Wolf puts us in. And again, where I want to pitch this is that you will almost hate Roman, but she's able to, and this is a part I want to pitch you on, and I really want you to listen to me, like, we don't even fully understand Shira ourselves, okay? She is cripplingly shy, and that shyness comes off as aloofness. So that's what I'll say about that part. And Roman is very bold, and he already has a bad opinion of her, and he's in full railroading mode. So that's going to be tough for a lot of people to swallow, all right? And I just want to get that on out there, because that is the part where when I was reading it, you are just watching him accrue a debt, okay? And that is what Julia Wolf does so well. You're watching her accrue a debt with Roman of how cruel he seems to be, and how much we want to punch him in the face, and how much we just know in the pit of our stomach that he's going to be horrified with later. Because what she is able to do is, even though we have those scenes with Shira where we're seeing what Roman is saying to her, and we're in Shira's point of view, and you feel about 1 inch tall when he's talking to you in a certain way. But then we get Roman's point of view, and while it doesn't completely excuse everything he's doing, we do see the glasses with which he's looking at Shira through, and how he's just so disgusted with what she's done to this company. And he knows how many people's businesses and livelihoods are on the line with how she has mismanaged this company. So that is all the setup, okay? I'm not, like I said, this book isn't out yet. I won't spoil more. But I want you to be aware of how much that's going to suck in the first part of this book. And you are not going to love this guy at all, okay? And you're watching this debt that he's building to us as the reader. We're watching it build up and being like, dude, how are you ever going to become someone that's worthy of Shira? Like, how are you ever gonna get there? And just trust the process is all that I'll say. Because if you, for all that you'll probably want to punch this guy in the face, the grovel and the heart transformation that this man goes through, Julia Wolf knows how to do that. Okay, that is what I have to say. Julia Wolf knows how to make a man do that, and not only just do it for the story reason, but make you believe it. And Shira is also very frustrating. Like, she's not 100% innocent of the perception that Roman has of her, right? Though I have, of course, buckets of empathy for her. I do understand at least why Roman thinks what he thinks. But, oh boy, it's going to get painful before it gets better. So, I've said enough. As I said, I'll be talking about this book a lot. It will be in my favorites of the month. It will be in my favorites of the year. It's going to show up. So, I'll have more opportunity to talk about all the stuff I love about it. But I don't want to spoil that journey for you. As I said, I just want to put this out there that for all the pain you're going to feel for the first good part of this book, I gave this 6 stars, and it wasn't even a question. It wasn't even a like, oh, am I just giving it this because of it? No, I loved this. I loved this. And when I hold In the Details and By the Letter up next to each other, I like By the Letter more. I like Roman more as a hero than I like Jake. And Jake was a 6-star and a favorite of last year. So that is something that I continue to be impressed with, that Julia Wolf continues to up the ante with this. Like, wow. So anyway, we got to move on. We're only 2 books in and 30 minutes in. So there we go. That's how it is with me. But yes, I gave this 6 stars. This has enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, surprise pregnancy, BDSM club. Just in the beginning, though, I will say. Billionaires, there's caretaking, it's a one-night stand, and we have a widowed heroine. The hero's an ex-rugby player. And there's also some kinks of free use, restraints, lactation kink a little bit, and trigger warnings of death of loved ones in here. And as I said, the beginning is going to be very tough. Like, it's going to be tough, but it's worth it. It's worth it. All right, we do have one to get through a bit quicker here. There was Hudson by Samantha Skye. This one is out already now. This is a billionaire romance, small town. This is the 2nd book in a billionaire series by Samantha Skye. This one is about Hudson, who is a doctor and a single dad, and he moves back to a small town to become the doctor of the small town. His family is from there, so he moves there. And is his family from there? Well, one of his friends is there, and he's good friends with the hero from the 1st book, who owns like the whiskey company and everything. And our heroine, Lacey, she works in town, and her mother is actually in remission of cancer, or was it a brain tumor? I think I wrote it down. Well, it was some type of illness. And so Hudson is going to be the doctor seeing her mother now and everything. And they actually had a moment in a previous, I believe it happened in the last book. Maybe I don't remember right. I don't know. But Hudson was actually part of like a rescue effort for her. So she's very interested in him, but she also has some PTSD in regards to him, because he's the one who saw her at her weakest moment and rescued her from a really dangerous situation. And so she just has kind of some like complicated feelings about him. Also, it's brought up over and over and over again how much older he is than her, the fact that he has a son, blah, 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 blah. She also has some trust issues with older men because of reasons, but you know, it's a small town romance. There is a bit of a suspense element in here, one including a previous stalker that I found a little bit awkward. I won't lie. It was one of those where I'm like, did we have to have a suspense element to this one? Probably not, but you know, what you gonna do? I gave this one 4 stars. It was a 3 on the spice scale. And there was death and grief in here. Oh, he's also a widower. So he's a single dad and he's a widower. Parental illness, and there was sexual assault in the past. Okay, next up was another fantasy. And this was Iron and Embers by Helen S. I'm not going to try to say her name because it isn't how it looks at all. This is book 1 in the Ashes of Thesmar, and this was my first book by this author. I do know there was a previous series of hers a lot of people have read and loved. I do want to read that series eventually, but I was sent a physical arc of this from the Nerd Fam, and I wanted to start with this book then. So I did actually listen to the audiobook of this one though, because I wasn't able to get to it quite before it came out. And luckily, though, there was an audiobook upon release day, and I'm really glad that I did that, because the narration, which was done by Matt Hayes and Amelia Bauer, was fantastic. It was really great. So this one is about, how do we say her name here? Ren. Oh, duh. I should have known. One of the most popular fantasy names that, in fact, I have 2 characters this week that their names were Ren. Ren and Torge. And it's very clear from reading this that Ren was very important in the previous book, and her and Torge already had a bit of a flirtation and connection, but Ren actually killed his previous charge. So he's a bodyguard and a powerful like swordsman. And she actually killed a man that he was supposed to be protecting. And it got Torge in a lot of trouble, obviously, that he wasn't able to protect this guy. And so he misses out on a promotion that he wants to take. There's also some squandered sexual tension between the two of them, because Ren wanted to, like, they both wanted to sleep with each other at one point. And he wouldn't go through with it because she just wanted to sleep with him to get it over with. Whereas he was like, if we're going to sleep together, like, it means something to me. And so when that was spoiled, that kind of led then to this antagonism. But in the beginning of this one, Ren is being sent to this like alchemy school where she's supposed to gain some skills and become very polished at that. And Torge, because she is a royal and she's actually an heir to the throne, because I believe it's her older sister is the heir, but like she doesn't have any children yet, so she is an heir to that throne then. And so Torge, as well as a few other men, are sent to be her protectors, and Torge is actually put in the room connected with hers through the bathroom, or by a bathroom there, to be her protector. So we have that aspect of it, lots of tension between them, her trying to like, you know, get away from him whenever she can. But then we also have her going to this alchemy school, which was cool. There was a lot, like, she was paired up with these two other people as well, and they are like training together and completing assignments and doing competitions to be like the best at the best. And so this whole book takes place during this school year, or however long it is, I don't know. And in the meantime, there are some different assassination attempts that happen to her. There's some different uses of poison. And I just thought that was really interesting. So as you can see, she's an alchemist, a poisoner, and a storm wielder. So she also has this power where she can direct like storms. Now, there's also a very intense connection between her and Torge that they are exploring throughout this. Like, not just the chemistry connection, but an actual like type of connection between the two of them that they're trying to find out more about. So this was really great. As I said, the audiobook was fantastic. I read this in just like 2-3 days, I think it took me. And I definitely want to read more by this author while we wait for the next book, which this has a really mean cliffhanger. Literally all of the fantasies I read this week are first books in a series, and they have horrible cliffhangers. But this one, I think the next one's coming in July, so it'll be here pretty soon. And I ended up giving this one 4 stars as well, and it was like a 2.5, a 3 on the spice scale. And there is some death and violence and use of poisons, so be prepared for that. Okay, next up was a new to me author that I signed up for an ARC for, and this one is called For Fillies and Monsters by Landon Hill. So this one was pitched. I signed up for this one from the Luna Literary Management, and they had this set as a gothic dark cowboy romance, and that was all I needed to hear. So I signed up for an ARC of this one. This one doesn't come out, I think, until the 18th, or no, it comes out the end of this week. It comes out on the 14th, but I couldn't wait any longer, and I dived into this one. So this one is about our heroine. Her name is Stetson, and I was like, really? And our hero's name is Augustus. Oh, this book is a bit complicated to explain. It has stalking in it. It definitely has suspense. It is a dark romance. It has our heroine who, she was from an abusive home, and she actually left home when she was pretty young, and has worked at a few different places through that time until now she's inherited her family ranch, which has very much pissed off her father's uncle, who he feels like he deserves the land because she's been away from home all this time. Well, she's been away from home all this time because her father is responsible for her mother's death, and her father also abused her. And there are a lot of PTSD flashbacks she has. She really has no desire, but she doesn't really have anything else. So she's come back to this town to run the family ranch, but nobody is very welcoming to her. So she only has one friend in the place, and this friend is helping her with her ranch, but like, I don't even know how they're doing it. The place is falling apart. People are trying to take her animals all the time. Like, it's not going great. And then there's this man that's in town who becomes a cattle hand for her. And now he doesn't ask for any money, just looks for a room and board, and he's going to help her. But what we know that she doesn't know is that this Augustus, who is actually a ex-bull rider, bronc and bull rider, I don't know which one it was, he is her stalker. And he's been stalking her for about a decade. When he first met her, not long after she left the town, like when she left 10 years ago. And they ran into each other at, I can't remember if it was at a rodeo event or whatever. And he became obsessed with her. And he becomes her stalker. And this has all culminated in the fact that he's finally ready to reveal himself to her. He knows about a lot of the bad things that have happened to her. And so he's also kind of an avenging angel for her as well. But he definitely is a stalker. This is a dark type of romance. And now he is her ranch hand. She has unknowingly hired her stalker. And he is now really ramping it up. And that leads to some of the like somnophilia things that have happened in here, of him sneaking in and, you know, like masturbating over her. Some very like Rena Kent type twisted shit happening in this one for sure. So be prepared for that. Like, this is pretty fucked up. Now, the thing is, though, is that Landon does really, not Landon, that's the author. Stetson does really kind of like that stuff. She's actually been in communication with her stalker for a little while, because Augustus has a second phone that he uses for that. So there's kind of a buildup of these two different things coming to a boiling point. There's him trying to work up the nerve to tell her that he is the stalker. And there's also the tensions between herself and the town going on. So yeah, if you like dark romance, if you like a bit of Pam Godwin, dark cowboy type of style, I think you'll find some really great parts about this. And again, this is a debut author. This book was intense, you guys. This book was intense. I did give it 4.5 stars. I really liked it. There were a lot of the dark romance aspects of things that I love in here. There were, of course, like with any dark romance, a few jump the shark moments, a few like wild things happening. But overall, I liked it a lot. And of course, also being dark, there was a lot of kinky times in this one. We had anal, praise and degradation, primal play, sex toys, somnophilia, spanking, spitting, and breath play happening here. And then there also was a lot of trigger warnings, which the author has a full page of all this. She did a great job listing everything, but there is animals in harm's way. Some stuff does happen to some animals on her farm. There is blackmail. There was child abuse in the past. There is death and grief. There's gaslighting happening. There was parental neglect, death of a parent, PTSD. Essay by the MC. He is assaulting her in her sleep a couple of times. And some talk of self-harm in there. So lots of red flags to add up for this one. But it was hot, and I liked this book. I read it very quickly. I loved it. Okay, then I had an arc of The Broker by Nikki Sloan, and this one also comes out on the 20th. There's a lot of books out on the 20th and the 25th this month, like a lot of them. So this one is the 6th book in the Nashville Neighborhood series. We love it. She just pops up every couple years with another book in this series, which I just love. And this one is about Noah and Charlotte. Now, as with all of them, it's connected because Noah buys a house in the Nashville neighborhood. And Charlotte, she actually, in the beginning of this book, has a date with Preston, who Preston is the hero and the good girl. Preston is the son from the doctor. And I believe that there must be some overlap with the good girl and this one, because he's obviously with the girl from that one. So he has this date with Charlotte in the beginning, and he actually leaves in the middle of this date. And then Charlotte is sitting at the bar, and she starts getting hit on by this absolute asshole. And so we have Noah, who's actually out on a date with this married couple, which we'll come back to that. And he sees this beautiful woman sitting at the bar and being harassed. And so he walks up, pretends to be her boyfriend. And then after the dude leaves, who was hitting on her, he actually does invite her back to his place. And his house is actually a disaster because he just moved in. And so he sees her kind of he's like, oh no, should I have not brought her back here because of all of this? Well, Charlotte couldn't have brought him back to her house because she is actually living with her parents right now because of something that happened in her life. And anyway, they end up hooking up. Now, one of the things to know in this one is that Charlotte isn't currently interested in penetrative sex. just for her own, like, I mean, honestly, she says it for emotional reasons, but Noah's totally into that. They get each other off in other ways. It's super hot. They still have a great time. And then the, next day, we find out that he has actually been hired at her father's business. And because this is called The Broker, what Noah does is he actually sets up a lot of deals between like companies and other companies. And he also does some work for like, not like small businesses, but like smaller businesses that are growing and like getting them like sponsorships and those kind of like brokering things. Like one of the deals that company is setting up is one with Troy, right, from The Pool Boy. He's a musician. Erica is his manager, like setting up like deals for him and things like that. So that's how he connects to some other couples in the world as well. He also has done some business with Clay, who is one of the heroes from The Architect. And he met him actually through a sex club that they both go to, where Clay actually makes a lot of sex equipment. That's one of the things that happens in his book. And we actually get to see his boyfriend and girlfriend, Clay's from that book, doing performances at the sex club using some of the equipment that he's made. And Noah has made deals with companies for different sex clubs with Clay for like commissions and stuff. So anyway, that's how Noah connects into the Nashville neighborhood. But anyway, Charlotte, who, as I said, there's reasons why she's living with her family right now and she needs a job. And so her dad has hired her to be basically the cleaning person at the business. And when Charlotte gets introduced to Noah, they realize, oh shit, and are actually really disappointed because they had a really great night together. And also, Noah ends up mentioning to the dad that he needs a cleaner, and so Charlotte gets hired to actually clean for him. So now, they know they can't be together because of, his position with her father. He can't lose this job. She needs to stay on her dad's good side, but she is now cleaning at his house. And one of these times she's cleaning at his house, he didn't know she was coming early, and he has a guest over who's actually a married woman that he's fucking. And she walks in on this, and she doesn't want to leave. But she is very confused about why he's fucking a married woman. Now, if you'll remember what I said, when they first met at the bar, he was on a date with a married couple. So he is actually a swinger. Noah is a swinger, but he's like a single guy who will swing with married couples and things like that. So that is kind of the kink in this one. Each book kind of from Nikki Sloan has like a different kink that's explored, and this one explores like voyeurism and swinging and stuff like that. So there definitely are some shared scenes. There's like one group scene. There's a lot more of like voyeurism and stuff going on. There also is a lot of other kinds of like sex explored because, as I said, Charlotte isn't ready to have penetrative sex yet. So there's toys used and other ways. Noah really likes to make her squirt a lot, so there's definitely a lot of that. There was some toys used, and there's some light bondage, and let's see what else was there in here. Some public play, squirting, voyeurism, sex toys, all that stuff. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. It's a 4 on the spice scale. It's definitely hot. Oh, and there's some light daddy kinks too. Ooh, I totally forgot the best part. Just some light stuff, but it was pretty hot. So I enjoyed it. It was good. I will say I felt a little bit like I wish there had been a little bit more hotness in a couple scenes. I feel like we were pulled away a bit too soon in some cases, but Nikki Sloan keeps you wanting more. That's for sure. I love that. Okay, now finally, there's 2 books still to say, but finally I want to share the arc from Tales and Teacups, which is a PR company that I'm working with. And I was supposed to have my physical copy of this book to be able to share for this review, but I didn't get it yet. They asked that I be able to deliver my review by February 9th, so I'm doing that. I, of course, am not paid for this or to tell what review. They just had us try to pick a day that we would share our review by, and mine was today. So just putting that out there that I did make sure I finished this last night so that I could review it today. But I don't have my physical book to share yet. So I'll just put up a picture of it and we'll talk about this. This is another debut author. And this is a pretty dark fantasy, by the way. Because this book is just coming out, I don't want to spoil too much about this, so I'll keep it vague. But I will say this story is very complex. I was very impressed by how much this author was taking on for a debut novel. I'll be very interested to see how she pulls it off in the next one. This is another book that had a pretty intense cliffhanger, okay? Like, whoa. It was wow. It also was a bit tough to get into to start with. I will say that. But on the other hand, I believe the author is kind of trying to make it tough to understand to start. Because we start this book off with our heroine whose name is, where's her name at? Her name is Vanna. And she has amnesia in the beginning of this book. So we start the book in a crash through the forest, basically. She's like running and she doesn't know why or who she is. And she gets rescued by this kingdom, which is the Forest Kingdom. And their king's name is Asher. And she's told that she's a human. And like that checks out with her a little bit. But no one else in that realm is human. She's the only human who's been seen in this part of the world for ages and ages. And so that's very strange. And the fact she doesn't remember who she is or know who she is. And she is rescued by, as I said, by this King Asher. And he's like, let me keep you safe. You don't know who you are. You don't remember where you are. Let me offer you safety. And she does try to escape a couple times, again, with very irrational reasons. Like, you're like, why are you trying to escape? What are you doing? What's going on? But the couple times she tries to escape, he rescues her and is like, please stop trying to run away. I just want to help you. We'll try to help you get your memories back. We'll keep you safe, but it's not safe for you. If you wander into the territory of one of the other rulers, you could be in danger. And so she eventually agrees to stay, and she starts to be, what we can only assume is be retold the history of this place. So part of why, as I said, this was tough to get into to start with is that there's a lot of info dumping at the beginning. Now, in one way, I find that clever because the author does have our character, a first-person POV character who has amnesia. So she doesn't know anything about the world around her. So this isn't the same case in other fantasy worlds where we have an info dump where the author shoehorns it in. Our character knows nothing, which means, we know nothing right alongside her and we want to know. So that makes sense in some regards. But it also still made for kind of tough reading in the beginning, just because you don't know anything. And also having a character who doesn't know anything and we're in her POV, I don't know, it just was tough to get sucked in right away. I'll just say that. Now, I also don't want to say too much about this because there's so many reveals in this book. It was wild. And so that's where I do want to compliment it, is that though we had to we're kind of stuck in the mud in the beginning of this, as things really get rolling, there was just a lot to love about this book. This also is a story that I need to be really careful about because there's a lot of reveals that need to be kept secret just because it makes the story so much more fun to go through. It truly does. But yeah, we go on this journey with Vanna as she starts to, rediscover the world around her, as she starts to fall for King Asher, who of course is taking care of her and providing for her and trying to help her get to know herself again. And we are also getting reveals about, are the things that King Asher is telling us, do they line up with what's actually happening in the world? Let's just say that. And yeah, we're going to get to know a bit more about some of the other kings and queens. You know, is there something special about Vanna that even she doesn't know? Is she able to do anything particular? Who knows? I will say this world did feel very magical. There are a term for the type of magical being that like the king and the people there are. It's called an Enon, I-N-O-N, and they're able to shift into different beings. They have both a more humanoid look, they have an intermediate look, and then they have a full like beast mode. Some of them can fly, some of them can do what is called whisking, which will very much appear like winnowing. And I want to be very careful not to make so many comparisons to Sarah J. Maas, because number one, everybody compares everything to Sarah J. Maas if they do. However, without them being straight up like, this is like this, I also think it's undeniable that when you read this, you won't see some things that pop up and remind you of her and maybe put a smile to your face. So it didn't feel like completely copying, in my opinion, but there are very many aspects that will feel very echoing to ACOTAR. Like, I'll just say it. There are a lot of aspects that will feel echoing to ACOTAR, okay? And that was kind of cool to me. It really was. Particularly a few of the dangerous situations in this book were reminding me of things like that. So yeah, that it's so hard to describe, but this was fascinating. So I gave this 4 stars because it was a really tough start for me. This has a 2 on the spice scale. The other thing I want to mention here is that, and this is listed in what the tropes are, though this isn't listed in the blurb. So that's why I'm going to tell you, right? This is listed as a love triangle, okay? A few other tropes involved too are, as I said, amnesia. There is kidnapping. There are different types of slavery mentioned in here. There is some gaslighting and emotional abuse, and there's a lot of violence in here as well. So the other character I'll mention, who I won't say how he fits in or how this is a love triangle, but there's also a character named Ren. You know, as I said earlier, I had 2 characters named Ren this time. And his name is actually spelled R-H-E-N. So there's maybe a bit of another similarity to Sarah J. Maas. I'll just say, I'm just saying, with the maybe like name spelling, we'll say that. I don't know. So anyway, I've said enough to maybe hint at this. I do have so many thoughts about the Crimson Forest. I really, really do, because the cliffhanger for this was drastic. I don't know when a second book is coming. This is an indie author. This was a huge fantasy. And again, though there were parts of this that were hard to read, I truly am fascinated to see where this author goes with it, because there were so many cool things in this, and it just got cooler the further I got into it. Like, it was rough. Maybe like first third of this was pretty rough. But once I was getting used to things changed on me, and I really liked what was happening. So I know I'm being so vague, but I really want to try to, especially because I was specifically asked to review this day by this PR company. I don't want to just like blurt out all these things I'm thinking, but definitely this comes out, or may be out, or is out. I know it's out this week for sure, but I definitely would love to hear some of your guys' thoughts once you read it. And yeah, I'm super interested. So yeah, the very last thing I want to mention quickly was a fanfic that I read. This was called Leave the Scent of Your Cologne by M. Oliver. And I read this one because of a piece of fan art or commissioned art that the author had shown. And then it was actually put into the fanfic as well. So this one is a Dramini. It's pretty short. It's only 130 pages when it's downloaded. And it is a, like, they're reconnecting with each other. And through some talking back and forth, they kind of both share how attracted they are to each other. And they end up having a one-night stand at a hotel. And then, like, it's very much the beginning of their love. But it is a, yeah, like little one-night stand spicy novella. And the artwork was super hot. The artwork was from a scene in the elevator where they actually get stuck in the elevator for a little bit and things get really hot in there. Like, it was great. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I still want to get this edited and uploaded on Sunday today. It's going to go up late afternoon, so I better cut myself off and get editing. But those are the books that I got through. Like I said, a lot of romantasy this week, which is great. It is Faro Feb. And yeah, thank you so much for the goodies that I was sent. If you'd ever like to send me a book, I always have my wish list down below. That always means so much to me to add to my beautiful collection. Thank you to the new supporters of the Patreon and the channel membership. That is amazing. And yeah, we will see you in the next one, friends. Bye.